2.9 magnitude earthquake strikes New Hampshire's east coast. Now we know that we've had an uptick of earthquakes on the east coast. This is the area of the New Madrid seismic zone. You can see that black line there. Basically, it should be called New Madrid Rift Valley. Let's take a look at the maps and the activity. Here we are. This is the New Hampshire 2.9 of today. And we recently had one as well here. 2 days ago, 1.6 in Maine. So basically all these areas are not too far from each other. About, 100 miles, those two earthquakes. Okay, here we are. New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. Maine we know has 5 volcanoes. 4 of them are in a 100-mile area. And we know that this area at one point had a super volcano, the area of Quebec, Montreal. This is the activity on the Canadian map. You can see the Cascadia area there. It's not just the United States that has earthquakes, also Canada on the west coast, Canada on the east coast, right here. Okay, these we've had activity around Lake Erie in Cleveland, Ohio. This one here, 2.1 in January. This one here, Vermont, 2.4 January, and a smaller one here in Maine, 2 magnitude. And this is Canada, I believe. Yes, New Brunswick. Basically the same area. But going back to this is an area that also has an underwater seamount of 30 volcanoes there. Underwater seamount, right there. And this is also today's earthquake in Virginia, 1.9. But this is what we're talking about right here. And I think a few people felt that. So I don't remember. Let's see. 107 people felt this. And looking at the map, it's in the mountains. The Adirondacks are here. All these are mountainous areas. Beautiful lakes, beautiful rivers. And we don't really feel those earthquakes. I only support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box because they're not very, they're just few and far between. Now, people in New England and its geological extension southward through Long Island have felt small earthquakes and suffered damaging from inferior, even frequent larger ones. Since colonial times, moderately damaging earthquakes strike somewhere in the region every few decades, and smaller earthquakes are felt roughly twice a year. Well, this was felt. The Boston area was damaged 3 times within 28 years in the middle 1700s. And New York City was damaged in 1737 and 1884. The largest known New England earthquakes occurred in 1638, magnitude 6.5. So that was pretty big, obviously. It was in Vermont or New Hampshire, and 1755, magnitude 5.8. Off the from Cape Ann, northeast Boston. Cape Ann earthquake caused severe damage to the Boston waterfront. The most recent New England earthquake to cause moderate damage occurred in 1940, magnitude 5.6 in central New Hampshire. Earthquakes in the central and eastern United States, although less frequent than in the west, are typically felt over a much broader region east of the Rockies. An earthquake can be felt over an area as much as 10 times larger than a similar magnitude earthquake on the west coast. A magnitude 4 eastern earthquake typically can be felt in many places as far as 60 miles from where it occurred, and it infrequently causes damage near its source. A magnitude 5.5 eastern U.S. earthquake usually can be felt as far as 300 miles from where it occurred, and sometimes causes damage as far as 25 miles. Now the faults. Earthquakes everywhere on faults within bedrock, usually miles deep, although some England earthquakes occur at shallower depths. Most of New England's and Long Island bedrock was assembled as continents colliding to form the supercontinent 500 to 300 million years ago, rising the northern Appalachian Mountains. The rest of the bedrock formed when the supercontinent rifted apart 200 million years ago to form what are now the northeastern United States, the Atlantic Ocean, and Europe. At well-studied plate boundaries like San Andreas Fault System in California, often scientists can determine the name of the specific fault that's responsible for an earthquake. In contrast, east of the Rocky Mountains is the rarely the case. New England and Long Island are far from the nearest plate boundaries, which are the center of the Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. New England laced with known faults, but numerous smaller or deeply buried faults remain undetected. Even the known faults poorly located at the depths of most earthquakes. Accordingly, few, if any, earthquakes in New England can be linked to named faults, and it's difficult to determine if a known fault is still active, could slip. Now, you notice that they don't talk about the mantle plume under the Great Lakes. Here we go. Okay, we talked about this many times. I've shown you the maps. The Great Lakes mantle plume has been there since 900 million years ago. And at one point, the Great Plains here were not there. I mean, Lake Superior is flushed towards Wyoming, Yellowstone. So there's magma under there here pulling along this Great Plains area. It's rifting. So basically, this mantle plume, about 1 billion years old, is a horseshoe-shaped thing. And they don't know where that magma is coming from, but it is a mantle plume. And the horseshoe is the western part going down through Kansas, Oklahoma, into Texas, and then swinging west. And the eastern part going here under the New Madrid seismic zone right here, and that's also a rift valley. It should be called the New Madrid Rift Valley, rift zone. We have the Mississippi River flowing this way, Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, St. Lawrence River. Basically, there's not that much to rift it. And this is sloughing off towards the southeast. So we have basically the continental United States, well, North America splitting into three: the west, the central, and the east. So all of you there on the East Coast, please be very careful. This one was felt by, as we said, 104 people. Okay, it's 8.3 kilometers depth. And from what I understand, remember, there's not that many people living there anyway. In the White Mountains there. Okay, we have the Adirondacks. Adirondacks, beautiful mountains. White Mountains there. Okay. Is there any? There's the river. We said all rivers are fault lines, so you can see that's a river as well. Okay. That's a river. Peabody River. That's where the earthquake took place. That's it. All rivers are fault lines. So all of you there, please be very careful. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support.